Tekken 8 has arrived at a place where many fighters have arrived before, and many other games have arrived and shall arrive too in the future, which is the end of the honeymoon phase. I think Tekken 8, and I think it's a popular opinion enough that people are agreeing that it has finally come to a place where we can see the cracks. We have removed our rose-tinted shades, glasses, and we're just ready to rip this product apart because it isn't the perfect game that we all had reasonable expectations for. It did not become that. But what is happening, guys? It's your boy Personality, and we're gonna be diving into this very multi-layered conversation because it's very interesting how everything around this end of the honeymoon phase came about. So first off, it really and truly kicked off with tweets by Arslan Ash, arguably the top dog of Tekken, best player out there, saying that Tekken 8 be like Heat Burst, Heat Smash, Power Crushes, Heat Engagers, Throws. That's it? Seriously, why did they even bother giving each character a variety of moves? So he essentially feels like the Tekken 8 experience isn't unique for each character. It just feels like everybody does the same thing. Everybody has access to these tools that don't necessarily define them or keep them into one specific spot or one specific playstyle of doing or accomplishing a particular game plan. It's now become a much streamlined process where these characters just all feel the same. Of course, that is his opinion. Now we had even more tweets saying that the worst thing about Tekken 8 is that players who literally don't know how to play Tekken just before the release of Tekken 8 suddenly became strong players. It's like players who have skills and worked hard equal players with zero skills and zero hard work. Now this is all coming off of the sentiment of the Heat system being very aggressive, very awarding for being aggressive, and overall certain characters essentially being busted. Some of the top offenders being Azucena, Dragunov, Devil Jin, Jun still. There's many characters who are essentially causing a lot of dismay around the community in terms of the people who use them and overall the advantages that they cannot take of these characters. And you know, obviously the boldness of the FGC had people tell these pro players, learn to adapt, you've got to get better at the game, your legacy skill doesn't work anymore, grandpa, get up, you know, we're going on to the new era. You know, these were the tweets in response to that, to the point where influencer that I myself follow, Emery Reigns, posted, "I don't think that I've ever seen this many players with zero accomplishments or accolades in a game try to tell professional players that know the game inside and out and have placed in majors for years that they're wrong until I started playing Tekken." Well, yup, Emery, the people are very bold. They're willing to tell people who have been here, they're willing to tell the pros, the experts, the people who have informed opinions, not just sitting down behind a computer and just tweeting out, have informed opinions that, nope, you are wrong, and trust and believe, I know what I'm talking about, you know? So that is the situation that we're unfortunately dealing with. Now, this all came at a very interesting time where there was a tweet from a Chris T clip on his podcast Talking with T, where he was having a conversation with Ryan Hart. Now, this is about a 1-minute video which was sliced out of a probably 40-minute plus podcast, in which Ryan Hart was essentially stating that he feels games of the past were much harder and overall had a higher skill ceiling in order to get better, and in comparison to what's happening today, it's not that much of a skill ceiling, so to speak. That's just paraphrasing, but obviously this was ripped out of context, and you can check out the full interview. I'll leave the link in the description below. But essentially, when Ryan said that, it came at the same time, literally the same time there was opinions being expressed about how Tekken feels now. This starts to trend. So essentially you're like, Tekken 8 bad, the opinion, well-informed opinion of fighting games of the past being much more difficult is trending. And then there was a tweet from Punk basically saying that everything feels very same. All characters have the option to do rushdown, and rushdown has become very aggressive over the years, and this has been done for the spectators so they don't fall asleep when witnessing defense. So it was a whole situation happening, and at the end of it all, I don't think we really got any true stance, except for new players essentially saying don't belittle my accomplishments, versus old players saying the only reason I'm not keeping up with you is because this game is easy, and despite me having more skill than you, I just can't keep up because you matched me, so my skill is now irrelevant. That was a majority of the arguments. I think you had some sane responses to this through Justin Wong. He's possibly one of the best people to talk about the change in era, and he himself had to agree with certain points, but also say that, look, older fighting games are harder simply because they were trying to make games cool. They were trying to have characters do certain things that in the grand scheme of balance and certain things don't really work out. But that was the situation that we were stuck with. And on top of that, there are no patches, there are no ways to rectify this. So yes, while a lack of information may have been the big case for games being harder in the past, you also have to understand that this was very new as well, and game developers were learning just as much as we were learning as well. Now, amidst all of that, Harada and team had a Tekken talk. And the objective of the Tekken talk is to essentially give us a heads up of what's next to come in Tekken 8. What can we expect? Now, before that Tekken talk, people were losing their YouTube channels like crazy. So, because if you had a mod in your game, if you somehow modded Tekken 8, film that and put it up, Bandai Namco copyright strike you, or on some grounds of violating the product, and then now you're in a situation where you're losing your channel. And a lot of people had these videos struck by copyright infringement claims, and overall they were suffering. So what had happened was, now we have new items coming to the Tekken shop and the announcement of a battle pass featuring items that were already seen in Tekken 7. And as some people who may have a much more informed opinion have said, most of these things are ripped assets from Tekken 7 that have then been upscaled to Tekken 8. So taking it from Unreal Engine 4 at the time, bringing it into Unreal Engine 5. I'm not sure about the technicalities of how that works, or whether or not that is even really a hard process, but it does come off a bit lazy, especially since some of these items were free in Tekken 7. So that caused even more of an uproar. Now, y'all know my stance on microtransactions. They don't really put me out that much. If it is that I want something, I've got the extra cash, I'll buy it. I see a skin I like, a skin I want, I like it, I'll buy it. Do I wish that most skins were somehow obtainable in-game, maybe through, in-game currency, because we've got a lot of Tekken coins that just seem very useless. They just seem like useless data in our games, especially if they're going to be taking these routes where you use the Tekken coins to pay for these items, and they're not necessarily willing to dish out even more free customization, or even if they're not willing to dish it out, let us pay using our Tekken coins. That doesn't seem to be the focus. Now, this doesn't really shock me, because this is just simply the way that the industry has been changing, not only for fighting games, but games on a whole. Let me tell y'all something. The biggest shock I got was when I started playing Pokemon again, and then I found out Pokemon had DLC. I could not comprehend that. An RPG getting DLC, trust and believe, this is before I even found Persona and SMT, so trust, I didn't know about these practices. But the fact that these little efforts are being made in games that used to be sold as a complete package, this is now happening on a much wider basis, because it's no longer a case where they're releasing this game and they're done. The company is asking, how can we make this product continue to make even more money? And that logic is what is ruling these microtransactions, whether you like it or not. This is not me justifying it. This is just me acknowledging what really funds these decisions, what really makes these decisions see the limelight, get greenlit. It's obviously people who don't necessarily care about fighting games that much, and they go forward and make these decisions because they care about the financials of the company. This is also interesting because I think out of all of the fighting game releases, maybe except for Grand Blue, there was really a message being sold as to what type of product this is. And the reason why I say maybe not for Grand Blue was really marketing and selling itself as the best game for beginners. You want to learn fighting games, you've never really played before, this is the place to start. This is one of the best games for beginners, right? Tekken was just essentially marketing itself as the best fighting game, period. The way Harada spoke about, we acknowledge what the competitors are doing, especially with pricing. We're not trying to do that. We have the biggest roster. We don't even need to add DLC yet, and we've surpassed people. The other competitors aren't doing that. So there was this kind of conversation going around, like they were very aware of what the sphere of fighting games were or are at this moment, and it made you almost feel reassured that you're about to get something so different than what's happening out there. And then when we get to the microtransactions, when we get to that process, we realize it's really not that different. They're gonna make you pay for legacy skins, just like many other games out there, just like MK is doing. They're introducing a battle pass to you, just like Street Fighter has. Some people are even commenting on the fact that the avatar customization is much better than the character customization. Guess who did that first? Street Fighter 6. So essentially, while we had those promises from Harada and the team, that is a technicality that they were not really, or a promise they were not really capable of fulfilling, partially due to the fact that they don't even have that responsibility under their belt in terms of microtransactions and profitability of Tekken 8. But what happens now? Nothing really, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, it's just a lot of disgruntled people who may have had their expectations shattered. Does it mean that pros are leaving the scene? No, it doesn't. They're pretty much sticking because they kind of have to. Unfortunately, some of them are really disgruntled about it. But I think Tekken has the potential to change. I mean, there is a big patch on its way, ready to come after EVO Japan. We may get even more news around that time. So there's still a healthy amount of activity. A matter of fact, the activity in Tekken was so shocking to me because this game was surprisingly, or is surprisingly popular. For the game that essentially prides itself on being one of the harder fighting games, but now trying to kind of get away from that mold and saying there's a place for everyone to come here, it really shocked me how many people never played Tekken 8 who were influencers just started to play it. And a matter of fact, that is even further amplified in Sejam's Slam Dunk, where he had big names like Disguised Toast, Lily Pichu, Sidion. Like, all of these names were just there attached with big names in the FGC who would have made these teams, had coached them, brought them through the process, and then you had this huge event, online event with Tekken, essentially just giving us a situation where we could see Prime Tekken be executed, or not, if not Prime Tekken, but prime FGC moments where the community continues to foster newcomers and even big names. Because when you bring big names, you possibly bring across their following gets interested in Tekken, they get interested in fighting games, and then they're like, okay, I want to take this to the next step. And growth, new players, is never a bad thing to these niche games or this genre on a whole. But overall, it kind of shocked me because there's even this YouTuber I follow whose primary content is essentially commentary on Black cultural or American cultural things, and he made a video answering a very particular question that comes around in the FGC, where it's like, why are Black people so good at fighting games? And when he was speaking about Tekken in that video, that's when I knew, it's like, okay, there's a wave of Tekken that I don't even understand is happening, but it's definitely out there. But where do I stand on this? What's my personal opinion on Tekken? Obviously, I agree with the honeymoon phase being over. I am a bit disappointed in the Tekken World Tour not having any online events. Now, I've become a bit more serious about fighting games on a whole, and I would have loved to just go in a bracket and get obliterated, like really and truly. It doesn't mean that the opportunity doesn't exist anywhere else. It's just that with the pride and the prestige that would have come with Tekken World Tour, and overall, even just getting an opportunity to say that I participated in that, seeing that there are no online events was kind of a blow to the gut in a very weird way, especially considering the dynamics of what we see happening in games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, even the SNK games, especially with City of the Wolves coming. I think SNK is going to be even more aggressive with how they can reach a wider audience by using online. We've seen what that has done for Street Fighter, and I would think that it's not really a good strategy to just leave out that in full preference of just strictly offline events. Now, that could just be for the first year, and overall, that's just what it is. That's the reality of the Tekken World Tournament. Now, I also think that the netcode of Tekken in comparison to what we have, what are the competitive offerings, just as how Harada and them wanted to talk about competition, competition is beating them. Like, it's the case where I've been getting full bar connections with other players and the lag is unbearable, whereas I could play Wi-Fi players in Street Fighter and it's much better. It's a much better experience, especially considering where I live on my part of the world, North America being my region, but it's still a distance between the main parts of North America. That is a big factor for me, and unfortunately Tekken isn't able to stabilize that experience. Although the Tekken Talk did mention them addressing these issues, overall the plugin issue, I don't even like how that is handled, having to go to Twitter and then do this report. Obviously, you've still got in-game reporting, but I felt like there was so much move away from the internal of the game to an external feature. Maybe they're trying to increase social presence. If that is the strategy, kudos to them, because I cannot stop seeing hashtag T8 report on my timeline. So that works out. But overall, I still think Tekken 8 is a very solid product and a very solid game. Like overall, probably one of the most refined and polished ones out there in terms of offering. I have also the popularity for Tekken hasn't really hit down here that much. You know, Street Fighter is much more popular in terms of where I stay. In terms of my region, within the NA region, and that whole complicated process that we don't really have to get into explain right now, but it's a case where I still like the game, and I think I will return to it in the future, but for now, sadly, to my disappointment, really and truly because of how I saw the channel going, this is not me saying I'm giving up on Tekken, right? But it's just that it's not really doing what I wanted it to do for me. And personally, my honeymoon phase is not over because we will be pulling up to play Ed. I will be still following the scene. There's a tournament I'm gonna go be watching right after I'm finished recording this. But it's just a case where it's approached a place where I think Tekken can improve, especially with the online performance. And overall, I've just liked the new faces that have been introduced to the FGC. I say this like if I'm an old pro in it, but it's just a case where I think Tekken 8 still has a decent journey to go in terms of service, in terms of growth, and in terms of balancing. I still think, like any other game, Tekken can grow in these aspects. But that is all I wanted to talk to you guys today on. Tell me in the comment section below, what do you feel about Tekken 2 months in? How you feeling? Is the honeymoon phase over for you? Do you even really care? Will you feel this strongly about the microtransactions as some people have felt? Or you really don't care, you just want to play some good ass Tekken? I will catch you guys in another video, but until then, stay gaming.